Picture this. Milk bottles frozen solid on the doorstep, their little foil tops pushed up by a column of solid cream. Coal that refuses to light, sitting stubbornly in the grate like a lump of black ice. And streets so hushed, so utterly still, that you can hear your own breath turn to frost and hang in the air before you. This wasn't just any winter. This was the year Britain stopped moving. This was the Great Freeze of 1963. It all began just after Christmas, with a whisper of white. What started as a few festive snowflakes dancing prettily in the lamplight soon became a blizzard, a relentless wall of white that seemed determined to bury the world. By New Year's Day, the nation had woken up to a different reality. The thermometer, if you could even see it through the ice on the window, had plunged below -15 degrees Celsius. Roads, once familiar routes for buses and cars, simply disappeared under mountainous drifts. Rivers, the lifeblood of towns and cities, froze solid, their currents stilled into glassy silence. Even the ever-reliable BBC, in its calm and measured tones, had to admit it. This was the coldest winter in living memory. Britain had been put on ice. Across the country, the rhythm of life slowed to a crawl. The clink of the milkman's float was replaced by an eerie quiet. Coal deliveries, the very heartbeat of a winter's day, halted completely, leaving families to stare at empty scuttles with a growing sense of dread. Inside every home, a silent battle was being fought against the cold. Pipes groaned, then burst, sending icy water cascading through ceilings. Windows glittered with intricate patterns of ice, not on the outside, but on the inside, as if winter had found a way to creep through the very glass itself. Mothers, ever resourceful, stuffed rolled-up newspapers and old rags under doors to block the relentless drafts. Fathers, armed with shovels and a sense of duty, would head out to clear a path, only to return hours later, defeated by the sheer volume of snow that fell as fast as they could move it. And children? They woke to a strange and magical sight. Frost ferns creeping across their blankets, their own breath pluming like a tiny dragon's in the frigid air of their bedrooms. Outside, the snow wasn't soft and fluffy. It had a different texture, a different sound. It cracked like breaking glass beneath your boots, a sharp, brittle complaint against the intrusion. But somehow, through it all, life carried on. Slow, stubborn, and beautifully, undeniably British. The great arteries of the nation seized up. Trains, those mighty symbols of industrial Britain, froze solid on their tracks. Steam engines, their fiery bellies cold, stood silent and impotent in the landscape. In the carriages, passengers huddled together for warmth, wrapping themselves in newspapers, their faces grim in the half-light. Cars, once symbols of freedom, became anonymous white humps, vanishing completely under snowdrifts that reshaped entire streets into alien Arctic landscapes. People formed long, patient queues for bread, stamping their feet in the biting wind, their shoulders hunched against the cold. Sometimes they'd reach the front only to find the bakery itself frozen shut, a note taped to the iced-over door. Yet, for all the hardship, for all the frozen stillness, there was a spirit that refused to be extinguished. Through it all, there was always someone, somewhere, boiling a kettle. It was an act of defiance, a small ritual of normality in a world turned upside down. Even if it meant trudging outside to scoop up a saucepan of snow from the garden and melting it slowly over a flickering gas ring, the promise of a hot cup of tea remained a constant, a comforting anchor in the frozen sea of uncertainty. It was a testament to a quiet resilience, a shared understanding that as long as you could make a brew, things couldn't be all that bad. That simple, steaming mug was a symbol of hope. When night fell and the world outside was a monochrome sketch of black and white, life drew inwards. Families gathered around the single, precious coal fire, their faces glowing in the flickering light, their hands held out, trembling, towards the warmth. Their breath was visible in the living room. little clouds of steam that danced in the light of the flames. They burned anything that would catch, anything that would offer another few minutes of heat against the encroaching cold. Old newspapers, broken chairs, orange crates from the greengrocer, it all went into the hearth. It was a primal, communal experience, a return to basics. In these huddled circles of light and warmth, new rituals were born. Children, their homework forgotten, toasted slices of bread on long forks, watching with intense concentration as the white turned to gold, then to a satisfying, slightly burnt black. Fathers, their usual evening routines of pottering in the shed or heading to the pub made impossible, would simply sit and stare into the fire as if the dancing flames might hold the answers to when it would all end. It was harsh, it was cold, and it was undeniably tough. But in those moments, crowded together, sharing stories and stale biscuits, it was home. And somehow, against all odds, Britain kept going. If this takes you back, if you remember the frost on the inside of the windows or the taste of toast made on a coal fire, share your memories in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Brit Echo, where the stories of old Britain live again. By February, Britain had stopped pretending. The flurries had turned into a siege. Schools closed their gates, their playgrounds buried, trains stalled on frozen tracks, silent metal beasts hibernating in the snow. The whole country fell still, tucked beneath a thick white blanket that stretched from the Cornish coast to the Scottish Highlands. But for the children, it wasn't a crisis. It was paradise. A symphony of joyful chaos erupted in every street. Biscuit tin lids became impromptu sledges, gliding down impossibly steep hills with a metallic scrape and a whoop of delight. Sturdy tea trays were repurposed for high-speed races, their passengers clinging on for dear life, propelled by nothing more than gravity and sheer nerve. And the snowball fights? Oh, the snowball fights. Epic battles that lasted all day, waged between makeshift snow forts, with alliances forged and broken in the blink of an eye. You'd finally trudge home as dusk fell, soaked to the bone, frozen stiff, your fingers and toes numb beyond feeling, but with a grin stretched from ear to ear. Ask anyone who lived through it, and they'll tell you the same thing, their eyes twinkling with the memory, best winter of my life. Even as the nation's coal reserves dwindled and pipes, one by one, gave up the ghost and cracked under the strain, the laughter never quite disappeared. It was a testament to that stubborn, unshakable British spirit. Newspapers, desperate for a little light relief amidst the grim headlines, filled their pages with charming cartoons of penguins waddling through Trafalgar Square or queuing patiently outside London tube stations. Radio hosts, their voices crackling through the airwaves, joked about snowmen applying for ration cards and polar bears being spotted on the high street. It was the famous British humour, you see. Frozen, perhaps, a little stiff around the edges, but never, ever gone. But behind the rosy-cheeked smiles and the defiant jokes, life was undeniably tough. It was a quiet daily struggle fought in every home. For elderly neighbors, it was a desperate battle to stay warm, huddled around a single spluttering gas fire, their breath misting in the air of their own living rooms. Doctors became local heroes, their cars abandoned as they trudged through waist-deep snowdrifts on foot, their black bags a symbol of hope on an otherwise white landscape. And families, they drew closer. They shared everything they had, fires, food, and long, companionable silences. The television might have gone fuzzy, the radio might have been filled with static. But when the fire burned low and the world outside was hushed by the snow, what mattered most wasn't the heat from the hearth. It was the warmth of the people beside you. Along the coasts, a sight not seen in living memory unfolded. The sea, that ever-moving, restless force of nature, froze solid. In places like Kent, the waves were captured in midair, forming bizarre, glassy sculptures of ice. Rivers, from the Thames to the Tyne, transformed into vast, unofficial skating rinks, where brave souls glided across surfaces that were normally home to barges and boats. It was a world turned upside down, beautiful and brutal all at once. And then finally, the thaw came. It didn't arrive with a grand announcement, but with a gentle, persistent sound, the drip, drip, drip of melting icicles from rooftops, a sound like quiet applause. Milk arrived on doorsteps in liquid form for the first time in weeks. And the first trucks, their engines roaring back to life, rolled cautiously through the brown, churning slush. They weren't just delivery drivers. They were heroes on wheels, reconnecting a country that had been put on pause. And as one, Britain seemed to take a collective deep breath and began to move again. That winter wasn't just about the cold. It was about character. It was a frozen, unforgiving season that taught an entire generation that true warmth doesn't come from a fire, but from kindness. It became a national story of patience, of humor in the face of hardship, and of a quiet, unassuming pride. Because no matter how deep the snow gets or how long the freeze lasts, one thing has never, ever changed. Britain never, ever lets the weather win. What's your memory of the coldest winter you've ever known? A story of a snow day, a frozen pipe, or a shared cup of tea? Share it in the comments below. Your story might just echo in the next video we make. And don't forget to subscribe to Brit Echo, and together we can relive the moments that made Britain, one memory at a time.